wonderful. I'm so glad you're joining me today. Today I'm excited to share a couple of projects with you. We're using the Simon Says Stamp card kit for March 2023. It's called Happy Hello. I haven't created with the Simon card kit in a few years. Actually, it's been that long. But I thought we would start creating with this every month. We're going to go over what's in the kit, and then we're going to jump in and create some pretty clean and simple cards using the kit. Now, your kit won't come in the mesh bag. I put it in there and took all the plastic off of my items just to make my unboxing a little bit quicker. Yours will actually come in a paper bag with Simon's seal, and then the pouch or the mesh bag will be separate in your box. Okay, so of course you get a sucker. Is this bubble gum? Oh, it's cotton candy. I like cotton candy. And we'll start with our cardstock real quickly. You get 3 sheets of cardstock. This is a Nina 110 pound. You get Simon Says Stamp 100 pound smoke. This is Simon Says Stamp's Peacock in 100 pound weight. So 3 pieces of cardstock. You get a full-size ink pad. This is Simon Says Stamp's Positively Saturated ink. This is Tide Pool. It's a really pretty color that almost matches this. Now, I had recently bought some of my hot hands, and I think I got the orange because the teal was out. So I am excited because I got the teal hot hands. Now I have two sets of hot hands. We can always use an extra set, right? So I love that they included that. Also included, we have some Distress embossing ink. This is a mini ink cube. And then we also have some Distress glaze, embossing glaze. Now this is translucent, so anything that you emboss over will take on the color that it is. I happen to have speckled egg, but you may get salvage patina. It's either or, so it's pretty similar, but I got speckled egg. So if I were to put speckled egg embossing glaze over this, I would still be able to see the pattern behind it. It will just be tinted speckled egg. Pretty cool, huh? So this is probably not recommended for standout sentiments. You know what I mean? We'll be playing with that. Speaking of this pattern paper, this is a 6x6 pattern paper. It's from Craft Consortium, and I hope I'm saying that right. And it's really pretty. You get some little bunnies on there, and the reverse side has some more bunnies. So you get a 6x6 sheet of that, and then you also get a whole bunch of 6x8 sheets of pattern paper. This is, I believe, from Simple Stories. It's called Wildflower. They're double-sided. A lot of fun prints in here. And you know I love my pattern paper. Get some coupons that you don't need to see. I should have took those out. And then you also get a 6x8 stamp set. I love this stamp set because it has florals and this beautiful heart, kind of like folk art, and then some really pretty sentiments that have the scripty and the block letters. I love that in sentiments, along with some larger sentiments and even a border, which is nice. Love that. We have an envelope. This is a white metallic envelope. And then we also have a die. This is a pretty nice size die. It says Happy Wishes. I separated mine already. But you get the shadow, and then you get the block letters that say Happy Wishes. Nice thing is, the letters aren't separate. If you die cut out this, it's one piece. So I love that. So that's everything in the kit. I hope it didn't take too long. But I'm going to put everything to the side, and we're going to create a card. For my first card, we're going to be using this beautiful heart-shaped element here. And we're going to be using our embossing glaze with that. I'm going to go ahead and take off my stamp. We're going to bring in our stamping positioner for this. I'm going to stamp my image with my black ink. I'm just going to use my Memento ink, because I'm going to add a little bit of color with some Copic markers. My Memento ink's a little bit on the dry side, so I might have to stamp it a couple times. It's such a pretty image. And while we're doing stamping, I'm going to stamp my sentiment for my card also. For this card, I want to use Thinking of You. And I'm going to use my VersaFine ink for this. Now I'm going to color in my image with my yellow Copic markers. I'm going to use a set of 3. I don't know if my camera will focus, but I'm using YR27, YR23, and YR20. And I'm going to start with my darkest for this, and we're going to color in all the areas on the bird that we can color in. Pretty quick and easy coloring. Now we're going to add some distress glaze over this, and to do that I'm going to be bringing in, let's actually trim away our sentiment here, and then what we're going to do is take our distress embossing ink. I'm going to use a dauber. This has a clean sponge on it. I'm going to pick up my ink with the dauber, and then I'm going to lightly go over my image here. Compared to VersaFine, this ink is a lot lighter. Once I'm done, you don't need too much of this. Once I'm done, I'm going to go over my image. Since this is a translucent powder, let me grab some scratch paper here. Since this is a translucent powder, you're still going to see the image behind it. I'm going to go ahead and take my heat gun and melt this. Once this is nice and dry, you can see the shine on here. Let me see if I can get the camera to go. So this is great. The embossing glaze is great for mixed media projects also. I have a die set. The largest will cut this out beautifully. And you know what? I think the entire stamp set, the Happy Hello stamp set, may have a coordinating die set. If it does, I'll link it down below. But the largest die in the nested round hearts will cut this out beautifully. Now while I'm die cutting, I'm going to go ahead and take a banner die, and I'm going to die cut out my sentiment here. So this is what it looks like. Got that nice sheen. I'm going to flip this around. I die cut out a smaller heart to fit behind it with foam. I'm going to go ahead and use some glue and add a little dimension to this heart with a piece of foam. And I'm also going to put some foam tape behind my sentiment as well. For my background, I'm going to use some pattern paper. This is the pattern paper that was in our kit. And I also am going to put, I like the stitch detail of a panel behind the pattern paper. So I cut out a panel using the Simon Says stamp. This is the bundle of stitch shapes. This rectangle die is just slightly smaller than my card base. What I'm going to do is take this pattern paper. This measures 3 3/4 inches wide by 5 inches. I'm going to layer this on my stitched paper, and then we're going to adhere it to our card. Once my pattern paper is adhered to my card base, I'm going to take my heart, I'm going to add a little more glue behind it, and this is going to go in the center of my pattern paper here. Next, I'll remove the release paper off of my sentiment. And we'll go ahead and add this. And then I created a bow with some white twine. I'm going to use a glue dot and we're going to secure that right at the top of our heart. Wonderful. For finishing touches on this card, I'm going to bring in some gems. This is the Spellbinders Color Essential Gems. This is Aura. It has a real pretty yellow tone to it. I'm going to add a few to the center of the flowers. Okay. And that's card number 1. A little bit of shine there. For my next card, I'm going to bring in some of the ink that came with our kit this month. This is Tide Pool. And we're going to do a little bit of ink blending on a piece of white cardstock. I want to create a gradient. We're going to be using the dye that came in our kit this month. Okay, I think that's the perfect amount. This is such a pretty color. And now we're going to do some stamping with some stamps. I'm going to use the border that's in our stamp set, so I'm going to bring in my large stamping positioner. I think that looks good. And I'm also going to trim down a flower. I'm going to take this flower here, and we're going to stamp that as well. For my zigzag border, I'm going to use some Distress Oxide ink. This is Scattered Straw. And I'm also going to use the same Scattered Straw for my flower. Wonderful. Now I'm going to trim down my border here, and then for the flower I'm going to use a Copic marker and I'm going to color it in. I'm using BG11. Now just a tidbit, if you are going to use your Copic marker with Oxide inks, don't run your Copic marker over the Oxide. It could ruin the tip of your marker. So I'm going to very lightly just go in the white area of my flower here. Now we're going to do a little bit of die cutting. So we're going to take our Happy Wishes, and I'm going to die cut out one with a gradient. I do want the white on top, so the darkest color will be on the bottom where Wishes is. And then I'm going to take a piece of vellum and I'm going to create a shadow. I'm also going to cut out Happy Wishes a few extra times with the white cardstock. This way I can give my sentiment a little bit of dimension. So I'm going to fussy cut this and do a little bit of stamping and trimming, and I'll be right back. I have my border trimmed and I have my side. I did cut out 3 extra Happy Wishes. Now this one is going to go directly on my vellum, and to adhere it I'm going to be using some Simon Says Stamp microdot sheets. I'm just going to open this up, and then I will add my sentiment here. I'll push down really good. We can adhere this directly to our vellum. Now with the extras, I want to mention, but I don't want it to see through the vellum. So to do that, I'm going to layer my Happy Wishes together. Okay, and then I'm going to put some of my microdot adhesive on the very front of this. And then I can adhere this right to the back of my vellum. So now I have some dimension, but you can't see it through the vellum. And of course, if you wanted to put it below your ink blended Happy Wishes, you could do that too. But I like the flush look of this. Now I'm going to take my rectangle die that's in my bundle of stitch shapes. I'm going to create a panel, and then I'm going to trim down some cardstock. And you can see I have that little bit of a border. I'm going to next take some pattern papers. I kind of chose the same color family, the gold with the light blue. I have this real pretty flower pattern paper, and this measures 3.5 inches wide by 4 3/4 inches tall. We're going to place this directly on in the center on the front of our card. Once this is adhered, I have a panel that measures 2 inches wide by 4 3/4 inches tall. This is going to go right down the middle. So we have that pattern paper on the left and the right. This pattern paper measures 3 inches by 3 1/4. I pencil marked all my measurements on my cardstock, so I could tell you guys the measurements, but the nice thing is I want to cover everything up so I don't have to erase it. We'll place this on our panel. I might have to erase this. I'm going to take my border, flip it around. We're going to put some adhesive behind here, and this is going to go the length of my card base. I'm going to trim off the excess that's overhanging just a little bit. And then with my flower that I fussy cut out, I'm going to add a foam square behind here. I'm going to place this on our panel. And just because I like textures on my cards, I did create a bow with some white twine, and I also found a small button. I thought it was yellow, but it's green, but I think I'm going to roll with it because I think the green goes well too, and there's a little bit of green in this paper too. So using a glue dot will adhere this. I've been using a lot of buttons on my projects, and I like it. I'm going to use a craft tool and kind of roll this up. Put it in the middle of my button. I'll add my bow. And then for finishing touches, I'm going to go over my Happy Wishes. I'm going to be using my sparkle pen. And that's card number 2. For my next card, we're going to do a little bit of stamping. I'm going to start by doing a little embossing. So we're going to bring in the stamping positioner. We're going to be stamping on our smoke cardstock. Now, we get one sheet, 8.5 by 11 sheet in our kit, and what I did was I quartered my cardstock. But if you want to turn this into a card base, you could very well do that. But I'm going to stretch my smoke cardstock and put this on the very front of my card. So basically it's a card front panel. Wonderful. Now I'll pick this up, and then I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool. I'm going to go over here, and then you can emboss with your distress embossing ink, and so I'm going to use that over my image. Stamp this. Wonderful. And then I'm going to go over my zigzag with some white embossing powder. So my panel is done. I'm going to go ahead and adhere this directly to my card base. We'll just turn this around. using some flowers. I really think this is so pretty. I'm going to stamp our largest flower with some Distress Oxide ink. This is Scattered Straw. I'm going to stamp this. And then I'm going to stamp this flower here, but this time I'm going to be using Speckled Egg. Wonderful. We have a heart that's in our stamp set. I'm going to stamp that as well. And then I want some leaves, and so I'm going to be using this leaf branch here, and I'm going to use Bundled Sage to stamp my leaf image here. Now I'm going to color in my leaf using some Copic markers. Now again, if you're going to do this, I suggest completely skipping over the outline area. I'm just finishing up with the colors. On the leaves I used two different colors just because I wanted that little whimsical look. And then I'm going to use my Copics over the flowers as well. Now after I'm done doing this, I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut out my images. And for the leaves, I'm not worried about the stem because I'm going to end up trimming these in half. I fussy cut out my images, and with the leaves you can see here, I'm just going to trim these in half and use these not as a flower stem, but just the leaves itself. Okay, I went ahead and created a panel with white cardstock using the banner die that's in that same. I'll probably be using this a lot during my Simon videos because I find this very, very useful and very handy. So I'm going to stamp my sentiment on here using VersaFine ink. For this card, I'm going to be using the sentiment that says sending you a happy hello. And I'm going to use an acrylic block and my VersaFine ink. Okay, give that a second to dry, and in the meantime, I have some more pattern papers. I have the yellow plaid. This measures 3 1/4 inches wide by 5 inches tall. I'm going to flip this around, and then I'm going to take this pattern paper. It measures 3 inches wide by 4 3/4 inches tall. We're going to add this right on top of our yellow, starting at that very corner. Wonderful. And again, I'm not going to bother erasing my measurements because we're going to cover them up. I'm going to flip around my banner, and I'm going to add some foam squares behind here. And I'm going to add this to my card here. I think that's a good spot. And then I'm going to add my flowers. Pop each one of these up. I did color in one more of those leaves, and I just used one. I just cut it in half. So we have 1 1/2 of those stems that we're using as leaves. Now I did go ahead and adhere my hearts, and for finishing touches, I'm going to bring back those Aura gems. I'm going to use the largest on the large flower, and then the next size up on the smaller flower. And then I'm going to add a little sparkle carefully over my hearts, and that will finish off card number 3. For my For my final card, I created another one of those rectangles from the die set that we've been using. I'm going to adhere this to the front of my card base. You can completely skip this step, but I really like the stitched detail that my panel offers. So we're going to place this in the center. Plus it kind of creates a frame. You can see how it's just slightly smaller than my card base. And then I have some smoke cardstock that I trimmed down to 3 inches by 4 1/4. That's going to mat perfectly this panel. I trimmed down a piece of white cardstock that measures 2 3/4 inches wide by 4 inches tall, and then I adhered a piece of this pattern paper. This is slightly smaller, so it's 2 3/4 inches wide by 3 inches tall. Kind of stretching. I was running low on that pattern paper, so but the bottom half we're gonna fix with a hillside. We're gonna create a hillside with our plaid paper, and to do that I need my bigger scissors, and I'm going to try and center it. I went ahead and tacked that hillside to my panel so it covers it beautifully. I think this panel is light enough to stamp my sentiment on, so we're going to take the sentiment in our stamp set that says, "Consider this a paper hug." I'm going to use my VersaFine ink for this, and I'm going to stamp this at the very bottom. Wonderful. Now we need something to put on the hillside, so we need to stamp some flowers. Let's go ahead and put this together. I'm going to go ahead and add some adhesive behind here. I'm going to place this panel. We're going to mat this on our smoke cardstock. And then I already put some foam behind here. Add some glue behind here. I'm going to place this in the center of our card. Kind of framing it. I like that look. Okay, now I'm going to stamp some flowers for our little hillside. And to do that, we need, let's see, I like this one. I went ahead and stamped Bundle Sage with my leaves. And then for my flowers, I'm using Scattered Straw. The tulip shape, I'm going to stamp with Scattered Straw. Since I'm going to fussy cut these out, I'm stamping directly on top. But if you have the coordinating dies, of course you'll want to do this separately. So with my last flower, which is this one here, I'm going to stamp that with my speckled egg. Kind of going with the same color theme. Like so. And I'm going to use my marker again and color in these flowers. And then I'll fussy cut them out. After my flowers are fussy cut out, I put foam adhesive behind them. And then we're going to layer these on our card. Wonderful. And then I brought in some twine. This is some yellow and white baker's twine. I wanted some kind of texture on my card. So I'm going to tuck this underneath this panel and then wrap it around a couple of times. Just straighten out those ends. And then I'm going to add a little more glue underneath our panel here. Since I lifted it up, I'll press it down. I'm going to bring back those Aura gems, and we're going to add some sparkle to this card too. I think that's just what it needed. And that finishes off my final card today using the Simon Says Stamp March 2023 card kit. It's called A Happy Hello. Let me know if you guys like these projects. I sure would love your feedback. But I love creating with pattern papers, and it seems like card kits have everything in it. But these are my final projects using the Simon kit. Thanks for joining me. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.